the controller. The Customs and Excise Department wishes to remind its importers of the import clearing requirements. Importers are required to present a copy of his or her government-issued ID. Not able to clear your goods? Not a problem. The Customs Department allows persons to clear on behalf of an importer. The importer will be required to send a letter addressed to the Controller of Customs, granting permission to the person to clear on their behalf, along with a copy of their ID. The person clearing on behalf of the importer will be required to also present a copy of their government-issued ID. Please also be reminded that the name on the import must match the name on the importer's ID. To avoid any delays or inconvenience, all importers are asked to adhere to these requirements.
Good morning, radio listeners, and welcome to another edition of Customs Corner. We're members of the Customs Department, share pertinent information as it relates to customs and excise. I am Kevon Browne, your humble moderator this morning. And today we have with us Kishma Griffin, Communications and Public Relations Officer, and Launlia Archibald, Senior Assistant Controller. Today, the topics for discussion are accounts and collection, private warehouse, and concessions. Now I will have my two guests introduce themselves, and we'll get the ball rolling.
Good morning, Mr. Browne, and good morning to your listening audience. And it's a pleasure for us to be back in studio. Like you would have mentioned, we are from the Customs and Excise Department with our weekly program, Customs Corner. This is a program with the intent to disseminate customs-related information and answer any questions that relates to customs, of course, that your audience may have. Last week, we dealt with courier operations and what is expected from importers in order to prevent delays. This week, we'll be looking at a different topic. The Customs and Excise Department is a multifaceted government agency that has a broad umbrella with many units. And today, we're going to have the Senior Assistant Controller of Customs, who has responsibility for some of these units, to make a presentation, and we invite callers to call in on the topic. Ms. Archibald?
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Griffin, Mr. Browne, and good morning to all those persons who are listening and who are streaming. My name is Launlia Archibald. I am the Senior Assistant Comptroller of Customs with responsibility for accounts and collections, the concessions and the private bonds unit, and also air and seaport operations. I'm also one of the focal point for CARICOM and OECS matters within customs, and I also deal with trade matters. I know that's a mouthful.
Yes, it is. So I guess we can just jump right into the topics. So for the listening audience, can we get a description of what exactly is accounts and collections?
Okay. Well, accounts and collections is primarily the area of customs that deals with records of statements, financial transactions, and report of our customers. So some of our customers who are familiar with us, we know some of the things that we deal with, our functions. We manage bills. We also deal with pre-releases. We issue licenses, duty-free shop license, private warehouse license, tobacco license, because there's some licenses that are specific to customs. Mm-hmm. Not all licenses are issued by the Inland Revenue Department. We also deal with the verification of local sales, and we manage the bonds to secure duty. So those are just some of the functions under accounts and collections. Under the concessions or the private warehouse unit, we regulate the private warehouse. In customs, we familiarly refer to them as private bonds. We also administer concessions. We provide input through the Ministry of Finance for requests for concessions. We also deal with certificates of origin, and we regulate the petroleum products operations.
Okay. So on the list of topics, you were speaking about concessions. What are some of the concessions available for businesses?
Okay. There are a good amount of concessions that are available to business. I'll just list some of them because there are many that the government provides for. If businesses want to start a hotel, there are concessions available for hotels, for the startup of a hotel. There are also concessions available to restaurants. There's a full-service standalone restaurant policy that the government provides for. There's also concessions that are available to small business, including startup business and medium-term businesses who would like some sort of relief in terms of the items that they would import. So there's a Small Business Development Act. There are also concessions available to manufacturers, people that are in the business of producing products. There are concessions available under the Fiscal Incentives Act. Not to forget our farmers and fishermen. There are also concessions available to them. And if someone wants to start a business in terms of the duty-free sector, there's also concessions available in terms of the Duty-Free Shop Act. So those are just some of them. Of course, there are more. There's concession available to churches. So there are quite a few.
Okay. And are any of these concessions available for individuals?
Well, in terms of individuals, yes. There are two in particular that comes to mind. There's the first-time homeowners concession. That is for if an individual is building their home, and so the government grants concession up to $300,000 on the building materials and the building materials that you would import or you would purchase locally. The government allows for that. That is duty-free. There's still some level of tax that you will have to pay, but it's primarily duty-free. There's also the returning nationals policy. That's for if a citizen of St Kitts and Nevis decides to permanently move back to the Federation. There's that concession that's available to them. This concession entails them getting their personal and household effects duty-free. It also includes a vehicle, but the vehicle is not totally duty-free. There's some taxes that are applicable to the vehicle.
Okay. And earlier you were speaking about, you mentioned the private warehouse and concessions on private warehouse, so could you delve a little bit into that? Okay.
The private warehouse is available to businesses. That is an arrangement where the individual or the customer would make an application to the comptroller to operate a private warehouse. What it is essentially is you import goods, they are in a period of suspense. So when those goods entered for home use, then the duties and taxes become applicable. For instance, there's some persons that would have private warehouse for vehicles. And the private warehouse area is for mostly high-end or high-revenue items. So a vehicle is a high-revenue item. When that company or that business would make an application, those vehicles would come in. They would be in a period of suspense, and when they are sold on the local market, then the duty and taxes are applicable.
Oh, that's new information for me.
Before you say anything else, Mr. Archibald, could you explain to our listening audience what you mean? Because you're saying the duty and taxes. Those are our terms. Okay. If you could break it down for the audience. Okay, so usually, or normally, in most situations for customs, there are 3 taxes that are applicable. That's usual. That's normally the import duty, the customs service charge, or what we refer to as the CSC, and the VAT, the value-added tax. There are some other taxes that are applicable to some items, but for most items, those are the 3 main taxes that are applicable. In terms of, for instance, vehicle, there's the vehicle environmental levy, in addition to those 3 taxes. For instance, in terms of alcohol and tobacco products,
there's the excise tax that's applicable to those items, in addition to those three taxes.
Okay. And you mentioned that there's multiple, there are other taxes involved. So is there like a cap on how much taxes can be applied to specific items? Is there a cap?
No.
I think, okay, so when he's talking about a cap, I think he means for duty. Duty, because the other taxes are standard. The VAT is 17%, the custom service charge is 6%, but there's a range of duty taxes, and that's determined by the tariff. But I will let Ms. Archibald delve further into that.
Okay. Yes, no, you're correct. I don't think I need to add anything further. How customs collect our duties and taxes, or how we do our assessment, is based on a tariff, or what we call the CET. That is an actual listing of any item that you can think about that's imported, and that structure has the name of the item, a code to it, and a rate of duty, and that's by law. So that rate is applied legally. The rate would range from anywhere from 0, meaning it's free, of import duty, or it could range as high as 70% in the case of firearms.
Okay, and you said that they are determined by law. So are there any, let's say regionally agreed tariffs?
Yes, we St Kitts and Nevis has entered into a number of agreements, both regionally and internationally. But when we enter into these agreements, the first thing that countries or states would negotiate is the tariffs. So in most instances, when St Kitts and Nevis enter into agreement with another country, we are negotiating what rate we are to charge, or what's applicable in terms of the other party. And those, the purpose of the agreement is to bring that rate to 0. So you won't find the rate would be higher than what your regular import duty rate would be. It would be even lower or 0.
Okay. And what is a bond?
Okay. A bond is an arrangement between the Customs and Excise Department and the client or the customer. A bond is a deferment of the duty and taxes. What that basically means in a nutshell is that you don't pay the duty and taxes up front. You pay it over a period of time that's agreed by both parties.
Okay, and the length of time, it can be anywhere?
Yeah, the length of time depends on, as I said, both parties. It can also be dependent upon the instructions that we would have gotten from the Ministry of Finance. So those are some of the
Okay, and who are bonds available to?
Well, bonds are primarily for businesses. The bond process is a very stringent process. We have a very rigorous criteria in terms of the bond. The law allows for the comptroller to make provisions for the adequate security. So we don't just want, the bond is not just a free-for-all. We don't just want anyone coming off the street who we don't have a history with, we don't have a record with, who has never done business with us, coming and saying they want a bond. The bond is primarily for businesses so that they can import more, that can stimulate in terms of more taxes for the customs and more revenue for the customs, and in turn more revenue for the government. So the bonds are primarily for businesses. What we are trying to do is, based on international standards, we are trying to, from next year, to make sure that the bond arrangement, the security for the bond, is backed by a financial institution. So that's what we are trying to do.
Okay. And you mentioned rapport. So let's say an individual has a rapport with you, with the Customs and Excise Department. Would a bond be available to them if you know of that person, or is it still not applicable?
No. Well, first, that person will have to be compliant too with the customs. So it's not just for us to know you to have a history with you. You must be a compliant trader or compliant customer in terms of the customs for us to be able to facilitate your request for a bond.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
I think, so Ms. Archibald, I think you need to probably let the audience know there are much more criterias in being able to get a bond, because then people might be out there thinking, I can go and order my car and I can come to the customs. I'm compliant. I've always ordered before. I've always presented my correct invoice. I've never bounced a check. I've never had a problem with the customs and feel like, so I'm going to order my Mercedes. I don't have any money right now to clear it, but I want to come up and get the bond.
Okay, so no, again, that's why I said bonds is primarily for businesses. So we, just like you said last week, we advise customers, or we would like customers to do their due diligence. So if you know you're going to order, let me use the example that you use, something like a vehicle, that is a huge investment. That is a significant investment. So we want our customers to do their due diligence, use the duty calculator, do your assessment in terms of what's the duty and taxes that you'd have to pay to customs, in terms of licensing and insurance, all those things you will have to factor in terms of the amount of money you will have to spend in order to clear this vehicle or to get it on the road. So we want the customers to be aware of that. We would not want the customers to make such a heavy, significant investment and import a vehicle and then they don't have the duty and taxes to pay for it. That's not what we are saying. If you plan to make such an investment, you should do your due diligence and make sure that you can pay the duty and taxes.
Okay, because that is something we've seen. I have, Ms. Archibald was my immediate boss. I was a supervisor of accounts and collections, and that is something that we saw a lot. People will bring in the vehicles and think that it's automatic. You could just come in like a kind of hire purchase thing and pay the duty over a period of time. And some of the times it was heartbreaking to let them know, no, that's not how it works, because they would have scraped up whatever little monies they have, buy the vehicle, and then when it comes now, they think they can come in and pay over a 2-year period, and then they were informed, no, that's not the case. So we want them to understand that no, bonds are really for businesses, but in the extreme case, there might be some sort of provision. But it's not that you can just decide, I'm going to buy my vehicle and come up and get it. Maybe they might give me 3 years to pay it off or something. No, it doesn't work so.
And some of them might not qualify because, of course, with the criteria that we have in terms of the security that they will have to provide, some of them can't meet that. So it doesn't make any sense for them to think that they can do that.
So what has been done in a situation like that? What happens to the vehicle or let's say it's materials brought in? What happens in that situation to the things that are brought in? Are they just left there?
Then that's when I have to turn it over to the senior assistant controller of customs. What normally happens? Well, what I've seen happen is we take it to the controller of customs and it's dealt with on a case-by-case basis, but Ms. Archibald can speak more to that.
Okay.
Because after I go through the documents and realize it can't be done, I have to turn it over to her.
Yeah, as I said, if they don't meet that criteria, then unfortunately the vehicle will have to stay on the port until they can secure the finances to clear the vehicle. Because we have to make sure, we have to strike a balance. Yes, the customer wants their goods, but we also have to make sure that the government's revenue is secured. Because we can't let them come in, sign that bond contract, knowing that full and well that the security means is not proper, and then 6 months down the road, we have to take it to a process where we have to pass on that bond contract to the Sisters General Office, where we would have to take them to the legal process. And then meanwhile, the government is out of that revenue.
Well, in a situation like that, I imagine the customer would still be at a disadvantage because let's say they do secure the necessary taxes, and the vehicle stays there, let's say, for a year. Wouldn't they just incur more costs?
That's why it's good to do your homework. Make sure that you know when you're ordering anything, any item, you know what duty and taxes that are applicable to that item.
And Ms. Archibald, you need to speak about the time frame too, because you hear Mr. Browne said a year, and we won't be holding on to that vehicle for a year.
No. We do, customs do auction.
Okay.
So legally, after 3 months, and the items remain unclaimed at the customs, at the port, well, the port authorities, the custodians of the cargo. After 3 months and the goods remain unclaimed, then those items will be published by the official gazette, and they will be auctioned.
So you hear that, listening audience. Please note. Please note and do your research and do your homework. So where can people find the necessary information that they need as it relates to bringing things in? What concessions, what taxes they have to pay, that sort of information?
Okay, so we did mention last week that we have a very informative website, skncustoms.com, and you can find it's constantly being updated. You can find updates. If you're going to updates, you can find a whole list of updates. You can use our duty calculator so you can get an idea of what your imports are going to look like. There's a tariff. If you're not familiar with a particular tariff number, there's a tariff finder, the search. So it's just a wide range of information right there on our website.
Yeah.
Okay.
In addition, you can also call the customs. We have Ms. Griffin, who is our customer service rep. So you can call and ask for Ms. Griffin, you can call and ask for myself, and we'll be happy to share that information for you. Also, there's other agencies and other ministries that are responsible for some of this information. Off of the top of my head, there's the Ministry of Finance as well, who persons can get information from. There's the Ministry of International Trade. There's also Skipper and Nipper, as the case may be. If persons are interested in terms of concessions, they can refer to those agencies, or they can call the customs, and we'll be happy to assist.
Okay, and for the listening audience, can you guys, from this discussion that we had, can you guys inform them on the 3 very important things they need to be aware of as it relates to customs and excise, based on what we spoke about this morning?
Okay.
It could be 3 between the 2, or 3 individually.
Okay. So in terms of bonds, that's very important. As I said, the bonds are only available, primarily available to businesses, and we would want customers to do their due diligence, as Ms. Griffin would have indicated, and I would have indicated, use the duty calculator, use our customs website. That's a very important thing that I need the customers to be aware of. I also need customers to be aware of that there are a wide range of concessions that are available to both individuals and businesses. So the government provides policies and legislation for a lot of these concessions. So don't think that you come to customs and you have to pay full duty and taxes and everything. Think it's small. Ask someone a question about how you can access those concessions.
Okay, Ms. Griffin, you have anything to add?
I can only reiterate, use our website. Use our website. It will help you make sensible decisions. We don't want you thinking that you can just come and get a bond and then you're disappointed and you're frustrated. We want you to use our tariff, our online tariff, our duty calculator, so that you can have an idea of what kind of costs you're going to incur. Just be prepared. Right, and the website is there for you to be able to make sensible decisions. So we ask you to use our website. And of course, like Mr. Archibald said, you can also reach out to us. You can give me a call. And if I'm not in or if I'm in a meeting, you can ask for Mr. Archibald, and we will be willing and ready to assist you.
The number to call, our number is 466-722-27, 7227.
And emails?
They can use the Office of the Comptroller's email, officecomptroller@skncustoms.com, or on the website, there's a link that says Inquiry Point, and that automatically goes to my email and Mrs. Griffin's email. So that inquiry point is in relation to any question, any comments, any queries that the person may have, the customer may have, they can do it through inquiry point.
Okay. So you hear that, listening audience, you have a myriad of ways to get information as it relates to customs and excise. If you are not fond of the phone, the website is readily available for you, and I'm sure if you send an email, you will get a response as timely as possible. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Customs Corner. I'm not sure if our ladies have anything else to add, any closing points. No?
Just to... Are we not accepting calls? Just to thank...
We haven't gotten any calls. I
Okay.
haven't, yes,
All right.
we have, unfortunately.
Okay.
We haven't gotten
I think
We were
Ms.
clear.
Archibald was so clear that yeah.
Well, that's a good thing then.
Okay, I just want to thank you, Mr. Browne, and thank WINN FM for hosting us and for allowing us the opportunity to share this information with the general public. Some persons sometimes feel when it comes to customs and doing business at customs that they get a runaround, and this may be due to the lack of information and proper communication. So we appreciate the opportunity to share with our customers. I want to say thank you, and thank you to our listening audience.
Okay, and for the listening audience, if you do have any questions, again, you can contact the Customs Department, or you can wait until next Thursday because they will be back for another edition of Customs Corner. Thank you so much for listening.
Just one quick point.
Yes.
We would prefer if you do have the questions that they shoot them to you and you forward them to us so
Right.
that we can address them as soon as we come next week, because
Oh,
we're
no.
going to be coming with another topic.
Correct.
Yes, so we want to get those questions out of the way so we can introduce the topic, and it's only a half an hour program.
Right.
So if they can do that, if they have any questions.
Okay, so if you have any questions concerning the topics today, you can send an email to Kevon at WINNmediaskn.com. That's Kevon at WINNmediaskn.com. And they will deal with the questions as soon as they start the program next Thursday. Thank you again for listening, and stay tuned for Voices coming up next.
The Customs and Excise Department wishes to remind its importers of the import clearing requirements. Importers are required to present a copy of his or her government-issued ID. Not able to clear your goods? Not a problem. The Customs Department allows